You're probably wondering why I've switched up my Arctic Ocean sign photo. Well, to be honest, I came to the realization that I probably wouldn't have done this trip on my own. By now, you've seen Steven in several of the videos, and a lot of the photos that I've shared in the previous 7 installments. So I felt it was right to share the photo we took together as a team when we reached the Arctic Ocean, a moment of combined triumph. At this point in our story, we had spent the night at the Rock River Government Campground. It was a surprisingly good night's sleep, especially after the struggles we faced preparing our evening meal and battling the relentless mosquitoes. In the last video, I mentioned that we didn't exactly follow the Arctic Canadian guidelines for avoiding mosquito trouble. By then, I was equipped with my boonie hat and mosquito net head cover, which made things tolerable. But let me tell you, at Rock Creek, there was no chance of going without them. You might be wondering, what are the actual rules for minimizing exposure to mosquitoes in the Arctic? They're pretty straightforward. Choose a high campsite, ideally on a bluff or ridge, not in a low-lying area. Pick a dry location. Avoid camping next to rivers, ponds, or any areas with standing water. Look for wind. A breezy location helps keep mosquitoes at bay. Unfortunately, none of the usual mosquito repellents, DEET, permethrin, or even lemon eucalyptus oil, worked up there. The one exception we found was thermocell devices, which release an odor that repels mosquitoes. However, these devices are only effective in calm conditions within about a 15-foot radius. If the wind picks up, it disperses the active ingredient, and the mosquitoes come right back. At Rock Creek Campground, we learned that there are 9 species of mosquitoes in the Canadian Arctic, and none of them carry diseases. How did we discover this? The next morning, we woke to the sound of a young woman yelling, "Go away, bear." As it turned out, this young woman was part of a 2-person team of entomologists studying pseudoscorpions in the Arctic. We interviewed her later, which was fascinating. You might be thinking, wait, John, didn't you bring a gun? And yes, I did, specifically for situations like encountering a grizzly in the wilderness. However, my firearm was locked in a case on my motorcycle, and to make matters worse, it was completely disassembled. Thankfully, it turned out that the only thing necessary to chase the grizzly off was the young woman shouting, "Go away, bear." Let's take a closer look at that day's journey. We woke up that morning and had breakfast with the entomologists, which led to some fascinating conversations. Afterward, we packed up and got on our way. Our route for the day took us from the campsite, across both the Peel and Mackenzie rivers via ferry, and onward to Inuvik. Before reaching the ferry system at the Peel River, we realized we hadn't made it all the way to the Arctic Circle sign. Naturally, we had to stop and snap a quick picture of our bikes in front of the sign, as is the motorcycling custom. The original plan was to have lunch at Fort McPherson, but somehow, we missed the turnoff. We took plenty of pictures while on the ferry. Steven kept remarking how unusual it felt to be on a motorcycle, on a boat, on the water. It's worth noting that for those of us riding motorcycles or adventuring up to Tuktoyaktuk or Inuvik, the ferries we were crossing on had been out of service for about 2 weeks prior to our trip. Before leaving, we were worried they might still be down, leaving us potentially stranded in Fort McPherson. For adventurers, this would have been a minor inconvenience. However, it serves as a reminder that this is the only summer road connecting Whitehorse to Tuktoyaktuk. It's a vital part of the region's economic ecosystem. After passing Fort McPherson, we continued up the Dempster Highway. Along the way, we spotted small signs indicating the distance to the Arctic Ocean. These signs offered a bit of hope and anticipation as we pressed on. Eventually, we reached Inuvik. Our first stop was the visitor center. Steven decided to snap a selfie to capture how dusty we were. Naturally, we also picked up our Northwest Territories Arctic Explorer certificates, which you receive after signing the guest book at the visitor center. After visiting the visitor center, Steven and I needed to find a place to bed down for the night. This search led us to Happy Valley Territorial Park and Campground. As campgrounds go, it was a pretty nice spot. There was a picnic area with a view overlooking a couple of lakes. However, they were experiencing staffing difficulties during our visit. We couldn't find anyone to pay for our campsite at first. Eventually, we spotted a host driving around in a large white Dodge truck. He told us to just set up anywhere. The campground was almost empty, so we grabbed an RV spot with a 30-amp hookup and a couple of 110-volt outlets to charge our gear. Later, when I went to the office to pay, the host was busy counting the day's earnings and refused to take cash for our site. The fee was supposed to be around $40 Canadian, we think. To ease our guilt, we slipped a $20 bill under the door the next morning. As for amenities, the campground had everything you might need: laundry facilities, bathrooms, and a shower. Another bonus was its location, directly across from what everyone we talked to agreed was the best restaurant in town, Ali's Tines. The restaurant had a super cool vibe. I didn't take many pictures, but the dining area stood out. It seemed like the lady running the place lived in a house behind the restaurant and cooked out of an old school bus. I've got a story to tell, but since I didn't take any photos, we'll see how well Clipchamp can fill in the visuals. At the campsite next to ours, there was a lady talking loudly. This is pretty unusual for a Canadian, so it caught my attention. What really drew me in, though, was the topic: people doing stupid things on the Dempster Highway that lead to slowdowns, breakdowns, and accidents. Finally, she made a remark about how tourists never listen to locals about these issues. Much to Steven's chagrin, I decided to investigate. Here's the gist of what I learned. Don't lower your tire pressure. If you get a flat, you'll destroy the tire carcass and end up stranded, trying to find an expensive replacement. Clean the dust out of your radiator system. A good power wash for your bike, in general, is also a must. Clean your air filter. Interestingly, there are 2 power washing stations along the route, and they were pretty busy, so there must be something to that advice. For us, we didn't lower our tire pressure and made it a point to check our tires every 100 kilometers or so. No flats, no problems.
Thank you for joining me for my latest video. If you'd like more information or want to stay updated on the channel's latest activities, be sure to join the Facebook group Lost in the Bush. In the group, we post regular YouTube content and share updates about potential events in the Asheville area, such as free group rides. If you're serious about heading to Tuktoyaktuk, or anywhere in the Canadian Arctic, or even if you're considering a drive up the Dalton Highway in Alaska, I highly recommend joining the Dempster Highway Adventure Riders Facebook group. This group is a fantastic resource for staying informed about local weather and getting crucial advice for your trip. If you plan to stop in the Whitehorse area, I also recommend staying at the Yukon Motorcycle Campground. The folks there are incredible. If you haven't already seen it, I have a detailed video about their amenities and the friendly atmosphere. They don't sponsor my content, but I had such a great experience that I always mention them in my videos. I want to make sure everyone heading north knows about their campground and the tools and facilities they offer. For those following along with my videos, you might want to start at the beginning of this adventure with Tuktoyaktuk or Bust, Part 1. You can find the link to that video in the description below. Lastly, I wrote a book about my trip, including selected destinations in Alaska. It's available on Amazon for just $3, the minimum price Amazon allows for a Kindle edition. If you're a Kindle Unlimited subscriber, you can read it for free. Be sure to check it out. As always, I really appreciate your weekly support as I work hard to publish new content every week. Remember, sharing is caring. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with others. It helps the channel grow. And don't forget to like and subscribe.